Hello, everyone, and welcome to the major recap. Yeah, this is going to be a video talking about the playoffs of the major, like I said I wanted to do before the playoffs started. I hope you all took my advice and you enjoyed the fuck out of this major, because it's special. It was a special occasion before the playoffs started, and it's a special occasion, obviously, now that it's happened and we know the results. Um, and it was just such an amazing tournament. Very, I would say, emotional as a fan, especially at least in my position. I've been a Counter-Strike fan, esports fan since 2015, basically, and so to have seen so much history of Counter-Strike and to see just the way that this major played out, I thought was just utterly beautiful and something truly special. So, um, you know, I'm not really going to be talking about the coin. Obviously, it didn't go very well for me. My predictions were shit. I got a silver coin. What are you going to do? But I mostly wanted to talk about the playoffs because I thought it was just an awesome playoffs. You almost couldn't ask for more. And um, and so I just wanted to talk about that. So without further ado, the first thing I want to say is I truly hope that all of you Falcons hate watchers get a miserable night's sleep tonight. This is the day. I'm recording this as of the day of the major finishing up. I hope all of you hate watchers really suffer in this victory for Falcons. I hope you really stew in it, and really have a hard time sleeping tonight. Because I've always found hate watching, specifically Falcons, to be such a childish and immature way of enjoying this beautiful game. Particularly from the standpoint of, you want to hate watch Falcons because they're owned by the Saudis. Um, while at the same time, honestly, if you hate the Saudis so much, you shouldn't even be watching Cologne because ESL is obviously owned by Saudi Arabia, in the same way that Falcons is basically. So, you know, um, I don't really understand why you're even watching ESL tournaments. You should probably boycott those. Give them less viewership, right? Really stick it to them. So I've just found that to be not only hypocritical, but also just incredibly immature and wrong that you think hate watching. I've always found it weird how, if you supported Falcons or if you wanted Falcons to win, or if you wanted their players to succeed, you were somehow supporting something that you shouldn't be supporting. When ultimately, I think it should be like this, where you need to keep the players separate from the organization, ownership, that type of thing. Look, none of these players joined Falcons because they wanted the bag only and nothing else. The players joined Falcons because they wanted to win and they saw an organization that was willing to spend money to try to create the best roster possible to win. Now you can argue that maybe they didn't get the right players for the right roles, or they spent too much money. Although I don't really understand why you give a shit so much about what the Saudis spend on, on an esports team. I mean, isn't it better they're spending money on this esports team than, like, oh, I don't know, a million other things that would be way worse? Um, but whatever. Don't know why you care about billionaires' money, or maybe even trillionaires' money. I don't know how much money they have. I know they have a fuck ton of money. Um, so I've always just found that very strange. To me, it's the players that matter. It's the players that matter. It's Nico that matters. It's Monesi that matters. It's Kyosuke. It's Tesses. It's Zonic, right? Um, it's everybody. It's Kerrigan, obviously. I mean, all these people, right? This is what matters. This is truly what matters. Is these players, and Zonic as the coach, right? And the other people that are involved that we don't know their names, but who are spending hours and hours and hours and days and weeks and months and years working so hard to reach a common goal. I think that's what matters. And so, yeah, I don't know how you could see the end result of this major and not feel emotionally, like, super happy for these players, and for the things that they've gone through. So I just wanted to start with that. Fuck all of you hate watchers. Um, I listen. I obviously don't like how Falcons is being supported. I wish these players were playing for other organizations, but I think that's more of an indictment on the fact that other organizations didn't find a way in the last 10 years to become sustainable, to create business models that actually worked, that decided to take all of the investment money that they got and just spend it like like it basically was just free money, and refused to treat sponsors well, refused to, do their diligence in paying players the correct salaries, that they were worth, treating sponsors well, treating VC money well, all other investors, family, family investment groups, that type of thing. These organizations, they fucked up, and so that's why you get a Falcons like this that can come in and spend a lot of money and get all the best players, or a lot of really good players, star players. That's how that happens. If G2 and all these other orgs, I'm not calling out specifically G2, I'm just mentioning them as an example. But mostly, honestly, it's mostly the NA organizations. If they actually managed their money efficiently and created strong business models, we wouldn't be here. But we are. And so I hope all of you hate watchers really take a look in the mirror and try to grow up a little bit, because it's pretty sad. Um, so let's move away from that now. Now that I've gotten my little mini rant out of the way, and let's just talk about the playoffs. And obviously, we got to start with the quarters. And I thought that I obviously predicted 9Z to beat Furia. I don't really regret that decision. I thought 9Z was playing some of the best CS in the major by the end of stage three. I thought they looked incredible. The decision making, how the players were playing, the confidence, the rotations, everything just looked so crisp, so decisive. They never hesitated in making decisions, and they were always active, always being proactive. And when I watch Counter Strike, that's what I look for. It's one of the reasons why Falcons, I think, did so well, is because they were always doing something. They had a plan in mind, an idea to go for. Kerrigan obviously had terrible stats, but always making a decision. Oh, not floating between decisions, not being indecisive, just consistently making moves, based on how he's reading the game, how he's feeling the game, and providing impact in that way. And I think that 9Z as a team was doing that very well. So, I don't regret that decision at all. But Furia played well. They have more talent, and it showed. K Serrato and Molodoi, for example, just a great performance for them. Aurora, Bet Boom, I obviously predicted Aurora is the only thing that I basically got right for the most part. Yeah, Betboom's young. They had stand-ins. I didn't really believe in them. I thought they were the worst team coming into the playoffs, and I was proven correct. So, um, yeah, nothing. Look, credit to Bet Boom for getting here. Great story for Boom Bitch to get here. I hope that it's not just a one-time thing, but I do worry about Bet Boom. I do think, that this is very easily just a flash in the pan, and they're going to go back to being a regularly tier point, 1.5 tier 2 ish team, that kind of can pull off some upsets sometimes, but for the most part is relatively not existent. For example, I think Foot is going to do more if they can keep their roster together than BetBoom would. That's my thought on that. But great that they got here. Aurora looked decent. They looked pretty good, actually. So that was great for them. G2 Team Spirit, what a fucking insane game. I was losing my shit. I thought G2 was about to beat Spirit. I always thought it was a little weird that people were talking about G2 and they were kind of talking about them as if they were like, not a very good team coming into the playoffs, or that they didn't really have a whole lot of faith in G2. When, from my perspective, watching G2, I thought they progressively got better throughout stage three. They just looked consistently better. I always feel like the problem with G2, especially this tournament, but in previous tournaments as well, is they're not a bad team. They have great players. Their lineup is really, really good. You can't fault them there. They have a great coach. I think Hunter does a decent job IGLing. I just think that the problem is that sometimes they have this structure that they want to use, that they want to play with, and sometimes they fail to execute a little bit, and they can look a little sloppy, sometimes, and it ends up costing them. In big game, it just costs them games basically, and I felt like that was happening less and less as we were moving farther into the tournament, and it really felt like G2 was kind of peaking at the right time. And so to me, I know there were some people who thought that this Team Spirit G2 game was going to be like the biggest one-sided matchup. To me, it was always Aurora Bet Boom. But G2, I think, proved here that they are a quality team, and that if they can continue to make strides, Heavy God is no joke. Nerds looked fantastic. Um, you know, um, and just overall, this team just like Sun Pius played well. Like he's gotten a lot of criticism recently, but I thought he played very well. The whole team really had their moments, and I thought that G2 was actually a really good, um, maybe not contender, but a very strong team. A team that if they were on the other side of the bracket, I think they would have had a chance of beating Furia and making it to the grand finals. Unfortunately, they got put on this side of the bracket. But G2 looked great. They almost beat Spirit. That Magic's 4K spray down in Kitchen absolutely broke my brain. I could not believe what I was watching. I genuinely thought he was going to get like two, but then he can't. Like, the idea in that situation is if you're the individual in the clutch is you want to be aggressive, try to get a pick or two, and then be able to get away and kind of isolate 1v1s after that. And I was just thinking he's stuck in this corner. He's going to get two, but he can't get out. Like, what's he going to do at that point? But I clearly Spirit or G2 just did not um, G2 just did not expect him to be there at all. Had no thought in their mind that he would play there, and they just ran straight into him, which was nuts. But an insane game, one of the best games, if not the best series. You could argue it was one of the best series, if not the best series in the entire tournament. It was that good, so it was really fun to watch. And then Falcons Vitality was also a banger. That day, what was it, Friday? That these two games happened was probably the best day of Counter Strike I've ever watched in just terms of just watching two series back to back and just how incredible those games were. Seeing Falcons win was incredible, and Vitality lose was incredible, and seeing I think the emotion on Apex, you could tell he really wanted this. You could tell that this was everything was building to this tournament. He really wanted this to just cap off the legacy of this Vitality team as the crowning achievement of this team of look at how dominant they've been and look at them, winning this tournament. They would have beaten Falcons, Spirit, and Furia probably. They would have had just as difficult a road as Falcons did, and it would have been incredible, right? It would have been an incredible story. Wow, this team is so fantastic. They've cemented their legacy. They're the best team of all time. There's no doubt, and they didn't win. And so now I think he knows, what this means. I think he knows that people are going to continue to have doubts, even though they shouldn't. I think personally, Vitality is the best team of all time. I've watched Astralis throughout their entire run. I don't think they are. I don't think they were as dominant as Vitality is right now. Personally, I think this Vitality team is fucking incredible. It literally, if you had to tell me today, who do I think is going to win the Singapore Major, I'm going to tell you it's Vitality because I just feel that strongly about how good this team is. And so Falcons beating them was no joke. Really impressive win. What a series. Incredible day of Counter Strike. And yeah, you can definitely tell it really hurt Apex. And I think this team's going to come back and hit a lot harder. They did not play their best CS. I think that will change very quickly. Moving to the semis. Furia and Aurora, really not too much to talk about here. Kind of a whatever series, honestly. This, it's just the story of the two sides of the bracket. You got one side of the bracket that's stacked, and you got the other side of the bracket that's kind of, it's all right, but it's not anything special. I mean, Furia or Aurora should be a kind of a banger matchup. Under normal circumstances, Aurora is no joke. They've made many a playoffs of big events before, but they just haven't ever really proven themselves. And you never really felt like this was their chance to do it. Beating Bet Boom wasn't impressive, and so you figured, all right, well, Aurora's here, but they're really here because of Bet Boom, and I don't really see how this is going to go. And so, yeah, I think, like I said, I think if 9Z had won, I think there's a better chance Aurora wins, but they didn't. Furia was there, and Furia showed their class, and and looked really good, and they ended up winning that series. Really, not too much to talk about. They looked great. Went to the finals. Fallen making another final in Cologne after 10 years. Cold Zero, obviously, in the opening ceremony at the beginning of the playoffs, bringing out the trophy. That was a really emotional moment for me. For those who don't know, I was when I first got into Counter Strike in 2015. That was, I think, when I think the first major that I watched was not actually Cologne. It was actually Cluj-Napoca. Um, and I believe at the time Fallen was on, I believe it was Keyed Stars, I want to say. I think they were Keyed Stars at the time. I don't know if they were Luminosity yet. Maybe they were. I can't quite remember. But I really enjoyed watching them play. I actually ended up being a fan of theirs. And so I ended up being a fan watching Luminosity. I was a fan of Luminosity watching them win Well, first lose. I think they lost in like ECS or something to Fnatic in an epic series. And then I watched them win MLG Columbus, Cologne. I was a fan of SK Gaming. I was a fan of that team for years. I'm pretty sure I don't know if they're privated now, but I know I have YouTube videos of me talking about my fandom of that team, of those players, and just how much I supported them. And I really, really meant it. It wasn't just a bandwagon thing. I really did support them, even when they were shit, even when they turned into MIBR and were terrible. I supported them that whole way for multiple years. They were my team. And so seeing Fallen make the major again and make the finals again, seeing Coldzera bring out the trophy, those were very emotional moments for me. Seeing these guys who I watched when I was younger, younger being 15, and when I was getting into CS, kind of get to the storyline again. It was just really special for me. So yeah, really cool to see Furia make the final. K Serato, another player who just incredible player who hasn't won a major yet, and you just really hope that he's able to get one someday. Him along with probably Elige. I think Elige is probably number one on the list now of best players not to win a major. I really hope he gets one. Team Spirit Falcons, obviously another banger because it's a Falcons game. And it was a absolute barn burner. The Dust 2 game, that last Dust 2 game was insane. Yeah, man, so many amazing moments. Donk not really playing his best to be honest, but still doing enough. It's weird. It's weird to say Donk didn't play that well. I'm sure if I checked his stats, I'm sure he still had like a 1.1 something rating or 1.2 rating or something. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's even better than that. I don't know. I didn't really feel like Donk was hitting the same level this playoffs that he was hitting in the group stage. Not that that would have been very easy to do considering what his rating was in the group stage. Um, but obviously, I think he was a little bit off. But by the way, I'm saying this as a person who absolutely loves watching Donk, and I'll watch Donk demos all fucking day. I love watching Donk play. He's one of my favorite players. So fun to watch. So mechanically gifted, just a joy. And so, yeah, in normal circumstances, I would actually be cheering for Spirit, but because of the Falcons storyline, because of Kerrigan, because of Nico, and Monazi, he had that fantastic player profile before the playoffs, I believe it was. He had that player profile that was really moving, really special. I thought that was the best player profile out of the ones that they did. It was just really, it was just a joy to watch that. And so, yeah, I was kind of after they beat Vitality, I was on the Falcons bandwagon. I was there. I wanted Falcons to win the whole thing, and so it was a fantastic game though versus Spirit. Super fun to watch. Again, I think this major delivered on all levels. This basically went as best as it possibly could have, in my eyes. And so then you get to the final. You get Fallen versus Kerrigan in the major final. Super special. I told my friends I won't feel bad if Furia wins because it will be special to see Fallen win another major after 10 years and doing it, in the same place that he won his previous major, right? That would be really special. K Serato winning the major would be really special. You could throw in Yuri as well. I just, it would have been really cool. It would have been a cool storyline for sure. But I couldn't help again but think that this has got to be it. Destiny. It has been foretold. This is Nico's major. It just has to be. There's no way they went through Vitality and Spirit to lose now. If Nico can't do it here, if Falcons can't do it here, if they can't win this final, they'll never win. Not Falcons specifically, but mostly Nico. I just didn't. I was just like, this is the. I mean, it's a little bit hyperbole. I don't know that I fully believe that, but I'm just saying this just felt like destiny. It felt like this team was destined to win the major. And yeah, look, was the final a little bit of a stomp? Yes. Although I think the games were all fun to watch. I didn't really have a, they were Falcons was dominant from maybe a scoreline standpoint, but it didn't feel like that when you were watching the rounds. It did feel like Furia wasn't playing that bad. It wasn't like Furia played bad CS. I thought they played pretty good, honestly. It just felt like things were not really going their way. Obviously, the pistol rounds never went their way for the most part. I think the Furia only won one pistol round. And it just anytime you needed somebody to make a big play, it looked like it was just a player on Falcons making it. And so, while I don't think Furia played particularly bad during this grand final. I think Falcons was just better. They were just the better team. They played better. Their individuals stepped up in big moments more, and it won. They won the major. And Kerrigan, people always talking about his goddamn stats. If you watch the game, man, you just see his impact. You just see it everywhere on the map. You just see him making plays. He just makes plays. And it feels like in these big tournaments, once or twice a game, he's going to make a play that just, you just go, what the fuck is that? He is a psychopath. It makes the biggest psychopath play that I saw him make this tournament was the play against Spirit, where I believe it was Spirit. I might be wrong. I think it was Spirit in overtime on Dust 2. The one where they were making the Spirit was making a cat execute going towards A while Spirit was on their T side. And Kerrigan had smoked them off on cat, and Kerrigan recognized that there's a timing where potentially they're gonna pivot, Spirit's gonna pivot to go towards the other side of the map, and I might have a timing here where I can push through this smoke, and they're not gonna be checking, and they're not gonna look for it because who is a psychopath enough to smoke cat and then push through their own smoke? And I can't remember which player it was, but there was a player on Spirit who barely missed the timing to see Kerrigan push the smoke. And then he flanks them from cat and shoots two people in the back of in the back around the middle area, and they ended up losing that round. Falcons did, but I just thought that was the most big balls. What the fuck is that kind of play I had ever seen? And it was, look, it's not completely random. Like I said, he probably saw this as a timing, but that is a timing that no player would ever think to actually make. Maybe in an online game, but not in the fucking major semifinals and damn near overtime. Nobody's making that play. And I think that's just what makes Kerrigan so special from that standpoint, let alone the in-game leading, the calling, the mid-rounding, right? Is that he's just, this isn't, this is what changed from when Kerrigan played with Nico back in FaZe all those years ago compared to the Kerrigan now, is that the Kerrigan now isn't afraid to make plays. The Kerrigan now is willing to make a decision and stick to it and really trust his intuition, whereas the Kerrigan back then hesitated, wasn't sure of himself entirely, and it just couldn't make those plays. But once he went through that journey with FaZe and had that little mini era that people forget about for some reason, don't know how, at the end of CS:GO, and it just felt like, oh, FaZe is this clutch team. How do they do it? It's because they're decisive, they're ballsy, they make plays, they play off their intuition, right? And that is something that Kerrigan has brought into this team, and it's not something that Falcons has really had. And that's no slight at Kixan. It's just different when you're talking about Kerrigan. It's why he's the fucking GOAT. And I don't even say that lightly. I think he's legitimately the GOAT IGL, and I thought he was the GOAT IGL before this series, before this tournament, and I only feel stronger about it now. And so credit to Falcons, credit to Kerrigan, credit to Nico. It was such an emotional moment seeing him win and turn to Mondesi and embrace him, and just you could just see just how much this really meant to him, and it was really special to watch. I got very emotional watching it. It was something really truly special seeing him walk up to the stage and get the trophy. Um, it was just awesome. It was just beautiful. It really was beautiful. I haven't seen many tournaments like this. I don't know that I'll ever see one like this again. It was truly a beautiful thing to watch. And if you missed any part of it, you should definitely go back and watch it. It will be fully worth your time. Seeing Mondesi even come up for the MVP award, I'm sure it must feel good for him knowing that he was a main contributor in getting Nico this trophy. And he said it countless times throughout his interviews after the event about how all he could think about was just how long Nico has tried to do this and how much it must mean to him, and just trying to put himself, I imagine what he meant by that is putting himself in Nico's shoes, trying to think about how tournament after tournament after tournament after tournament, suffering the way that he has suffered, working as hard as he knows Nico has worked for this, the amount of failures that have just piled on top of each other to finally get here now. I'm sure Mondesi was trying to put himself in those shoes and really, he kept expressing how much he felt, um, so happy for Nico, and I think it was awesome. It was just awesome. And before I don't want to leave it just at that, because I also think it's fair to point out, like, this is great for Zonic, obviously, great for him. Certainly helps him in the GOAT coaching debate, although I think I would still give it to Blade. Great for him, but I think a player, Kyosuke, great for Kyosuke, right? Super young player, developed a lot throughout this tournament, played really well in the playoffs, just awesome. And I hope he continues to develop because he's a really talented, awesome young player. Um, but I think the player that does not get talked about a whole lot is Tesses, and I think Tesses deserves a whole not of just credit because I think people just kind of just they don't really think about Tesses too much, but like this is a guy who went into the major final at Rio and disappointed, and they lost that final to outsiders, who then were one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to beat Vitality or to battle Vitality at that Paris major at the final CS:GO major, and lost to Gamer Legion in the semis. Right? This guy has been through a lot. People don't know that. People don't think about that because it's Tesses. He's a role player who gives a shit. But he's been through a lot. He's been through a lot. And when he even was on Falcons, people constantly telling him that he needs to be the one to go. He sucks. He's a bot. All this stuff, which was ridiculous. If you watched Tesses play for even 10 seconds and you had a brain, you could tell that he was doing a lot for the team. He had all the terrible spots, all the terrible roles, and he was actually doing pretty fucking good in them. Decision making wise, look, he's gonna have some rough games. He's playing the worst spots in the fucking game, but you could tell watching him, he's a soldier. He's gonna do what he's told, and you need a guy like that on this team. And not only that, he did it very well, and he was dedicated to the role. He wants to do it. He wants to help the team like this, and his aim is actually really, really good. People just don't really talk about it, but his aim is incredible. Mechanically, he's a very gifted player. And so I just think people kind of overlook Tesses a little bit. I don't even think they brought up Tess's name when Mondesi was on the desk after the series. They brought up all the players, Kerrigan, Kyosuke, Nico, all these guys. They didn't bring up Tesses, and I do think it's important to bring up Tesses because he has been through a lot in his career, and for him to get here and to get over the hurdle, I think is really special, and I'm very very happy for him. He's been through a lot. And so, yeah, I just feel awesome about this tournament. I'm so happy with how it turned out. I was really emotional after the event ended. I was really emotional seeing everything, the opening ceremonies, seeing Nico, lift the trophy, seeing all the players after the series. It even hurt to watch, Fallen and Caserado and all these guys, having to watch all of this happen and having mixed, some mixed feelings. I'm sure they felt happy for Nico, but I'm sure they were sitting there going like, well, obviously, like this sucks. Like this was our chance. This was our chance to do it. And you never know if you're going to get another chance, right? You never know in this game. You never know what matchups you're going to get. You never know what's going to happen. And so, for these guys, I'm sure it hurt a lot. You can sit here and say, look, yeah, Molodai will have another chance someday, but you never know. You never know what happens when Fallen retires, right? At the end of the year. There are just things that you don't know. And so, that hurt to watch, obviously. But it's competition, it's sports, and this is how it works. And I thought this tournament was incredible. It was just so incredible. I'm so happy that I was able to watch it. I was so happy that things turned out the way that they turned out. And I hope that you enjoyed it as well. I hope that you had a good time watching the Counter Strike, enjoying it. I don't know how you can't feel some kind of way about this game, and how the teams play, and just the stadiums, the environment, just everything about Counter Strike is just it's just a level above every other esport. It's just not even close. And I can say that because I've watched the other esports, and maybe I don't fully understand them to the same extent as I understand Counter Strike, but I've when EG had teams in all the other esports, I followed all the other esports. And I tried to be as aware about how things work and who the best teams are and all this. I tried to be as involved as I am with CS. I really did that to my best ability. I watched EG win a Valorant World Championship, and I still can tell you that this is it just feels bigger. It just feels bigger. This game is truly special, and so don't take that for granted. And I hope you all enjoyed the tournament. I hope you all enjoyed my pick'em discussions, and this conversation, and I hope that you all, really savor this, really bring it in, and hopefully we get some more sick tournaments in the future after the player break. So without further ado, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.